Something extraordinary is happening in Mexico. Tens of thousands of Gen Zers are taking to the streets and demanding their left-wing government give in to President Trump and do exactly what he's calling on them to do: dismantle the drug cartels destroying their country once and for all. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor. We're going to find out exactly what's really going on here and why so many Mexicans are calling on President Trump to intervene. And the answer is going to shock you. The scenes are breathtaking. On November 15th, thousands of protesters led by Gen Z activists stormed Mexico City in one of the largest demonstrations in years. The target of their protest wasn't the United States or some globalist institution. It was their own government's failure to eliminate the mass influence of drug cartels among politicians, an influence that's allowed these international syndicates to kill over 100,000 Mexicans since 2019 alone. And here's the astonishing irony in all of this. These protesters are demanding the exact policies Trump is implementing and more openly calling on President Trump to help.
Y le pedimos al gobierno de Estados Unidos, listen, Trump, listen, see? Come and help us, and please come and get the shit out of Mexico. Come and get Obrador, come and get Claudia Sheinbaum.
Gracias, muchas gracias, gracias. Bueno, son muy distintos.
Now, the uprising was sparked by the horrific assassination of Mayor Carlos Manzo Rodriguez, who was shot 7 times on November 1st while holding his young son at a Day of the Dead ceremony. Now, Rodriguez was a vocal critic against cartels extorting avocado farmers, and when he was gunned down for that advocacy, Mexicans, they just had enough. And the Mexican Bishops' Conference released a visceral statement after the assassination saying, quote, "Today, it's no longer enough to apprehend the killer. We must resolutely combat the root causes of all these murders, namely the vast influence and control that Mexican cartels exercise over Mexican society." And so they condemned the ordinary presence of these armed groups which control the public life of citizens, and they called it a serious weakening of the constitutional order and basically said this must come to an end. Now, what's so fascinating here is that while all of this chaos has ensued south of the border, President Trump is actually delivering what Mexican citizens are begging for. Yesterday in the Oval Office, here's what Trump said about launching military strikes inside Mexico to target cartel drug labs and leadership.
Would I launch strikes in Mexico to stop drugs? It's okay with me. Whatever we have to do to stop drugs. Mexico is... Look, I looked at Mexico City over the weekend. There's some big problems over there. If we had to, would we do there what we've done to the waterways? You know, there's almost no drugs coming in through our waterways anymore.
And here's the stunning part. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, she has actually a very high approval rating, but it's largely because she's cooperating with Trump's crackdown. Poll data shows the vast majority of the country wants their government to cooperate with Trump, and a full 68% of Mexican citizens support extraditing cartel leaders to the United States. So in August alone, Mexico sent 26 high-ranking cartel figures to the United States, including leaders from the Jalisco New Generation Cartel and the Sinaloa Cartel. Now, this is important because, of course, the Trump administration has designated multiple cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. So that includes the Sinaloa Cartel, Tren de Aragua, you know that, Carteles Unidos, Los Viagras. So this designation allows the United States military to target their assets, freeze their finances, and treat them like the terrorists they are. And the key here is that most Mexicans support precisely that, which, of course, you'll never hear from CNN or the rest of the legacy media. And that's, of course, because what they call reporting is too often just left-wing activism in disguise, crafted to guide perception rather than reveal truth. And so millions are waking up to the realization that the news is curably broken, but then they have no idea where they can turn for the truth. But fortunately, there is a solution to that, and that's ground news. Ground News brings together headlines from over 50,000 news sources and makes it easy to understand what's happening. But what really makes it powerful is its transparency. You don't just see the stories, you see the political bias behind every story, the ownership ties. You see the coverage breakdown across the spectrum. My favorite feature is what's called the blind spot feed, and it shows you which stories are blowing up on one side of the aisle, but barely mentioned on the other. It's the clearest way to see media bias in action. So, for example, here's a story that the left is completely ignoring. Republican senators recently introduced the Stop Antifa Act to make the designation of Antifa a domestic terrorist organization permanent. So the GOP wants to make Trump's executive order permanent law. The left-wing media is doing everything they can to ignore that story. And of course, the right has its blind spots too. But now you'll know. You'll see with every story, Ground News shows you the entire spectrum of who's reporting from left, right, and center, how reliable each source is, and who owns each outlet. It's literally everything the corporate media doesn't want you to see. Right now, you can get 40% off the Vantage plan, which gives you unlimited access to all the features I personally use for about $5 a month. Just visit ground.news/Steve, click the link in the description, or scan the QR code. That's ground.news/Steve. The pathetic legacy media may be perplexed as to why, but U.S. officials report a 50% reduction in fentanyl seizures compared to the same period last year. Trump's closing of the border, along with Sheinbaum deploying hundreds of troops against the Sinaloa Cartel, one of the world's largest fentanyl producers, has devastated cross-border drug trafficking. Homicides in Mexico have actually dropped 24% in the first 9 months of Sheinbaum's administration. Over 32,000 criminal suspects have been arrested, thousands of drug labs decommissioned, and more than 245 tons of drugs seized. But that said, the assassination of that mayor a few weeks back was a stark reminder of the power and influence that cartels still have over Mexican society. What we have to understand is that Mexican drug cartels have effectively become a parallel government. They wield tremendous power that rivals and often exceeds that of official state institutions. And it's not just Mexico. It's all throughout Latin America. I remember when I was visiting Sao Paulo back in 2018 in Brazil, and my guide and I were driving through the city, and he pointed to this massive apartment complex that was going up, under development, under construction. And he said to me, you see that? That's all public housing. That's basically free housing for the people, and it's all been built by drug lords. So the cartels basically buy the loyalty of the people. They provide the housing, the services that their corrupt governments routinely fail to deliver. So drug cartels operate with literally hundreds of billions of dollars. Again, many drug lords or operations can have more money than their local governments, and they create parallel societies. And those parallel societies are often just as, if not more powerful than their civic governments. El Mayo Zambada, that's the co-founder of the Sinaloa cartel, he admitted under oath that his organization paid off Mexican generals, governors, and entire police forces to facilitate drug trafficking. So that's why the Trump administration has revoked visas of over 50 Mexican politicians. Again, let that hit you. 50 Mexican politicians suspected of cartel ties, revealing just how deeply organized crime has penetrated the Mexican government and civic institutions. Moreover, cartels don't just traffic drugs. They control entire economic sectors. So in states like Michoacan, criminal groups extort avocado and lime farmers, which raises prices for everybody else. They illegally log forests, and they dictate agricultural supply chains. So again, this goes way beyond drugs. It's literally a parallel government, and often as powerful, if not more so, than their civic government. And the tragedy here is that cartel violence costs Mexico's economy hundreds of billions of dollars annually, an estimated 18% of their total GDP. So beyond the direct violence that killed over 100,000 people since 2019, cartels drive up food prices through extortion. They force businesses to pay protection money, and they destabilize entire regions. So this is why the people are rising up against their government right now. I mean, despite President Sheinbaum's high approval ratings for cooperating with Trump's crackdown, Mexico's institutions remain deeply compromised. The cartels operate with near impunity. They function as terrorist organizations that have successfully captured significant portions of the Mexican state apparatus. And to combat that, Trump has authorized drone surveillance flights over Mexican cartel hotspots with intelligence shared directly with Mexican security forces. The Treasury Department has sanctioned violent cartels like Carteles Unidos, which has used improvised explosive devices and foreign mercenaries and brutal turf wars throughout Mexico. And of course, they've shut the border and are actively blowing up cartel boats in the Caribbean to discourage drug transports. And now Trump is even saying, as you heard, he's open to U.S. military strikes inside Mexico to take out these cartels. And it looks like more and more Mexican citizens are growing increasingly open to precisely that. Until then, Mexican citizens will continue to rise up, demanding action against these cartels. And one thing is for certain. In light of this civil unrest, President Trump isn't the problem. He's the solution Mexicans have been praying for. Before you go, gang, if you want to be part of a community where faith, family, and freedom come alive, check out the Courageous Patriot Club. I love for you to see what this community is all about. You can watch a free preview of Turley Walks, one of my exclusive weekly series. Head on over to turley.pub/turleywalks.